If you're gonna have your ovaries removed, that means no kids, right? I don't need you anymore, so how about we get a divorce? The paper that Michael, my husband, slammed down in front of me was, unbelievably, a divorce application.
Wait, what are you saying? Jokes like this are not okay, especially now.
Just a few days ago, I was rushed to the hospital with sudden abdominal pain. After tests, they found it could be ovarian cancer. I was admitted for surgery the next day. This isn't a joke. I've been putting up with everything till now. No, it's been me who's been enduring, living with my in-laws and putting up with their mistreatments. It's me who has been putting up with everything all this time. Yet, why do I have to be the one faced with a divorce form? Especially at this time, with surgery tomorrow? Overwhelmed with anger, sadness, and despair, I covered my face with my hands. Then, as if to make things worse, I heard my in-laws' voices. A woman who can't have kids is useless, just quietly step back. Clinging to a younger husband at your age is disgraceful. These 3 years were a waste for Michael. Just disappear from our lives. My in-laws' words tore through my heart. I bit my lip, holding back tears, and with trembling hands, I managed to scribble my name on the form. Good, now you're nothing to me, Michael said, storing the divorce form in his inner pocket. As he was leaving, Michael added,
Actually, I've recently met a nice girl at work. She's young, cute, and healthy. I made the right choice not getting stuck with an ugly, old gene pool.
Shocked by his cruel words, I was speechless. Pushed to rock bottom, little did I know that 3 years later, when I would meet Michael again, things would take such an unexpected turn. My name is Emily Williams. I married Michael, 2 years my junior, 2 years ago. I met Michael at work when I was 38, and after his relentless pursuit, we ended up getting married. I had already given up on the idea of marriage and initially kept turning down his invitations. There are plenty of younger women out there. But I like someone independent and calm like you, Emily. I'm 38 and might not be able to have kids. I don't want kids, I just want to be with you, Emily. Michael insisted. No matter what I said, he was adamant that I was the only one he wanted to marry. So, I presented him with just one condition for marriage. Just promise me this. I'm not so focused on having children that I'd struggle with late pregnancy. Let's not force having kids, they are a blessing that should come naturally. Michael agreed to this condition, and that's how we ended up getting married. Michael, who had always lived with my in-laws, insisted on continuing to live with them even after our marriage. I'm an only child, and I'll eventually have to take care of my parents. Why not start living together with them from the beginning? I was a bit hesitant to live with strangers at this age, but since he had married someone like me, I agreed to live with my in-laws, Jacob and Olivia. However, I soon realized this was a mistake. Emily, we'd like you to take care of shopping, cooking, washing dishes, taking out the trash, and cleaning the bathroom. Why should I be the only one doing so much when there are 4 adults living here? I couldn't voice it, but I felt distrustful of them from the start. They seemed to think of me as a housekeeper. Emily, I feel like eating stew today. Emily, the entrance is dirty, clean it. Emily, iron my shirt. How had the 3 of them been living up to now? Their house wasn't dirty, so someone must have been doing the chores before I arrived. This made me even more frustrated. Moreover, my in-laws were overjoyed, assuming that since their only son, Michael, got married, they would soon have a grandchild. You're almost 40, you should start infertility treatment soon. No, we're fine even without kids. What are you talking about? There's no point in marriage if you're not gonna have kids. My in-laws argued as if choosing not to have children was inconceivable. Well, we're not young anymore, so we decided not to be too anxious about having kids. Michael initially tried to convince my in-laws, remembering the condition of our marriage. But my in-laws were persistent. No matter how much Michael tried to persuade them, a few days later, they'd start grandchildren yet? One day, Michael came into the room, his face red with anger. Mom said I should get checked at the hospital because it might be my fault you're not pregnant. His pride as a man was hurt, and he started taking it out on me. But hey, it's not my fault. It's just Michael being upset on his own. Of course, I didn't say it out loud, but my frustration kept growing day by day.
I'll prove it's your fault we can't have kids. We're going to the hospital,
he eventually declared. However, I had no intention of undergoing fertility treatments, so I ignored what Michael said and made up an excuse about being busy at work to escape his family's house. I'm home. Mom, listen to this. I was relieved that my parents' home was near my workplace. Before going home, I would stop by my parents' house to get things off my chest. There, my loving parents, Tom and Scarlett Smith, who had already retired and were enjoying their golden years, would be waiting for me. I wondered how my parents felt about their daughter, who had finally married in her 40s, suddenly exploding with complaints about her marriage. At first, I felt guilty towards my parents, but they listened to my complaints like it was just casual conversation over drinks.
Emily, what happened today? Our neighbor gave us some good sake, let's drink together.
Maybe it's because they took it so lightly that I could vent to them. Why does everyone think marriage equals kids? And even though pregnancy and childbirth are all hard on the woman, the husband's parents have so much to say.
People are just set in their ways, especially as they get older. I'm known for my gentle demeanor. Your dad has mellowed with age. Maybe Michael may be like your dad? Over time, this situation will probably turn into a laughing matter.
My parents always tried to encourage me. Having them always on my side gave me the strength to keep going in my marriage. Then, one day on my way home from work, I suddenly felt a sharp pain in my lower abdomen. What is this pain? I started sweating from the pain and couldn't stand anymore, so I sat down on the sidewalk. I tried to reach for my phone to get help, but my hands were shaking too much to find it. Fortunately, a passerby noticed and called an ambulance for me. At the hospital, after various tests, I was told there was a possibility of ovarian cancer. Can you contact your family right away? The nurse asked. I called Michael. It was past 7 p.m., usually the time he'd be home, but he didn't answer the phone no matter how many times I called. I had no choice but to call my mother.
I'm coming right now. You'll be okay, Emily,
my mother assured me and soon arrived at the hospital with my father. As soon as I saw my parents' faces, tears overflowed from my eyes. Even past 40, I wasn't strong enough to face cancer alone. My mother gently stroked my back. Together with my parents, I listened as the doctor explained my medical condition. There's a high likelihood of cancer in the right ovary. We recommend removing both ovaries and the uterus.
Does that mean I won't be able to get pregnant?
Yes. Were you hoping to become pregnant, Ms. Williams? Well, I hesitated. Honestly, at 41, I wasn't that desperate to have children. But faced with the pressure from Michael and my in-laws to have kids, I momentarily resisted the idea of becoming infertile by choice. If I wanted to get pregnant, are there other treatment options? I asked timidly. You need to think about what's best for your body first. My parents looked at me with worried faces. The doctor, looking intently at me, spoke quietly. There are methods, but we need further tests to see if they're applicable to you, Ms. Williams. My parents were probably surprised that I was concerned about pregnancy. I was surprised at myself too. I couldn't articulate my feelings well, but the thought of having both my ovaries and uterus removed, having never had children, left me feeling indescribably empty. A thought crossed my mind that maybe if I didn't give up and tried hard, Michael and my in-laws might change their views about me. Such thoughts also crossed my mind. I'm not ready to completely give up on pregnancy. Can we try keeping one ovary? The doctor looked into my eyes and nodded. I understand your feelings, Ms. Williams. However, depending on the progression, there might still be a need to remove everything. After discussing with the doctor, the decision was made to remove my right ovary, the site of the disease, in 5 days. If the disease was confined to the right ovary, we would observe with chemotherapy. If there's any spread, you'll need to give up on pregnancy. The doctor emphasized, and I nodded firmly. Thankfully, my parents didn't comment on my decision and quietly supported me. My mother visited me every day in the hospital, caring for my downtrodden spirits.
Did you get in touch with Michael?
No, he didn't answer the phone, and there's been no reply to my email about being hospitalized. I just don't understand Michael. My parents were silent, not expecting the relationship between their daughter and her husband to have deteriorated so much.
He must be busy. Your dad and I have plenty of time, so don't worry about laundry or anything. Oh, I'll buy your favorite pears later.
My mother made an effort to act cheerfully, trying to keep my spirits from sinking. The warmth of my parents was deeply comforting. I resolved to do my best in the surgery for them. That's when Michael and my in-laws entered my hospital room noisily. The day before the surgery. I glared at the three of them. Why did you ignore my calls and emails? Michael, with a smirk, replied.
Seems like you had a tough time.
Good job. Expecting an apology for not contacting me, I was speechless and at a loss for words. I am about to undergo surgery, and yet they speak as if it's none of their business? Boiling with anger, I glared even harder at the three of them. Seeing me like that, they whispered something to each other and then looked at me with a smirk.
Get out! I don't want to see your faces.
Unable to hold back, I yelled at them, forgetting I was in a hospital. Then Michael walked up to me and thrust a piece of paper at me.
If you're getting your ovaries removed, you can't have kids, right? I don't need you anymore, so can we get a divorce?
The paper Michael presented was, shockingly, a divorce papers.
Wait, what are you saying? Jokes like this are not okay, especially now.
This isn't a joke. I've been putting up with this until now. No, it's been me who's been enduring all this time. Yet, why do I have to be the one presented with the divorce papers? And all this happening right before my surgery tomorrow. Mixed feelings of anger, sadness, and despair swirled inside me, and I covered my face. Then, to make matters worse, I heard the voices of my in-laws.
A woman who can't bear children is useless, just quietly step aside. Clinging to a younger husband at your age is disgraceful. These 3 years were a waste for Michael. Just disappear from our sight.
Their words tore my heart to pieces. The fact that I chose a treatment option to preserve my chance of pregnancy for these 3 people now seemed foolish. What is this treatment I'm getting? Stunned, I watched as Michael placed the divorce paper and a pen on my bedside table.
All you have to do is sign your name, and it's done. I'll take care of filing it, so you should at least be grateful.
Saying this, Michael forced a pen into my trembling right hand. I wasn't necessarily against the divorce itself. In reality, I felt it would be unbearable to continue living with my in-laws, enduring their constant remarks until I had a child. But for the past 3 years, I endured their tyranny. Because they were family, and they only saw me as a machine for producing children. My resentment towards the 3 people, who, instead of supporting me through my cancer and upcoming surgery, presented me with a divorce, was profound. I bit my lip hard to hold back tears and, with great effort, steadied my trembling right hand with my left, furiously signing my name.
Good, now we're complete strangers,
Michael said, tucking the divorce papers into his inner pocket. The 3 of them, looking satisfied, left the hospital room. Just before leaving, Michael turned back and said,
Actually, I've recently met a nice girl at work.
She's young, cute, and healthy.
She's got nothing on you. I made the right choice not getting stuck with an ugly, old gene pool.
As I glared at Michael, he jokingly said, glad to be divorcing the old hag, and left. The room quieted down, and the only sound was my sniffling. Michael and my in-laws had pushed me, already crushed by illness and fear, even further down. I buried my face in the blanket, sobbing uncontrollably. After some time, I heard a knock on the door. In a panic, I covered my face with the blanket, pretending to sleep.
Emily, you're asleep. I peeled some pears for you, eat them later.
said my mother, who usually entered without knocking. My mother quietly came in, placing a container with the pears on the table.
I'll move all your stuff to our house today. Once you're discharged, maybe you can help with the laundry. Oh, and your father has started cooking. Look forward to his meals. I'll come back tomorrow morning.
My mother gently stroked my head peeking out from the blanket and left the room. My mother, without saying a word, seemed to understand everything. Maybe she overheard my conversation about the divorce outside the room. Feeling her endless kindness and warmth, I cried again. After a while, I felt better and looked up. The pears in the container were cut into bite-sized pieces, easy to eat.
Thank you, Mom.
Biting into the juicy pear and picturing my parents' smiling faces. I resolved to get better soon to repay my parents and set recovering and making them worry less is my goal. The next day, I underwent surgery to remove my right ovary. The right ovary turned out to be cancerous, but fortunately, the left ovary was healthy. The plan was to continue with chemotherapy to target any unseen cancer cells. The first chemotherapy session was tough due to side effects and the medication not agreeing with me. I couldn't eat anything, and my hair started falling out, making me visibly weaker. But my parents were always there, encouraging me.
Last night, we saw the meteor shower you love. Dad found 5 shooting stars. He made wishes, so you'll get better.
I was touched to know my dad, who usually had no interest in such things, had stayed up to watch the sky just for me. His love made me feel the warmth of family anew. Thanks to them, I was able to maintain a strong determination to persevere for their sake. After 6 months in the hospital, I switched to outpatient treatment.
If no one uses it, the house just gathers dust. We're glad you're coming back home.
Taking me back home as if it were the most natural thing, never mentioning my divorce. I couldn't return to work immediately, so I spent some time recovering at my parents' house. Supported by my parents, I gradually started to feel like myself again. Then the second new year since my surgery dawned. Before my illness, I used to spend New Year's Day just sleeping, but after experiencing cancer, I made sure to lead a regular, healthy life.
Ah, that was a good walk.
As I returned home from my usual morning walk. Just then, the mailman arrived and handed me some New Year's cards. Flipping through them, I found one with a baby's photo. It came from Michael. While I was battling my illness, Michael had moved on, finding happiness and even having a child, just as my in-laws had wanted. I wondered what his intention was in letting me know this. Although the card didn't make me feel good, Michael was now a stranger to me. There was no point in wasting my energy on a stranger. I decided to move on. Also, I was certain that my parents would be upset if they found this New Year's card. I immediately tore it up and threw it away as soon as I entered the house, making sure they never knew about it. After the new year, I managed to return to work. My office was just a couple of train stops from my parents' house, so it was manageable for me to commute.
How was the healthy lunch? It was delicious, thanks as always.
Every day, my father prepared balanced lunch for me. My father, who never cooked while I lived at home, now making lunch for me. I was deeply touched.
Dad, you're really good at cooking. Could you always cook?
I quietly asked my mother, who shook her head.
Your dad got excited about making your lunch. He's improved his cooking skills over the past few months.
Seeing father humming while packing the lunch, I could tell he was truly happy that I was getting better. Parents give their children unconditional love, no matter how old they get. I wish I could have been a parent like mine, giving unconditional love. I smiled to myself, thinking vaguely about it. Although I kept one ovary, it turned out to be unnecessary for me, a single woman. But I need to stay healthy for my parents, and someday, I'll repay them. I made that resolution anew. Since then, I have been living a healthy and peaceful life, both mentally and physically. But one day, Michael and my in-laws suddenly appeared in front of me. They were waiting outside my parents' house for me to return from work. Emily. Michael muttered my name, and all three of them knelt down, not caring about the people around.
I was wrong. I want to start over.
What is he saying now, especially since he already has a child? I was furious at Michael's irresponsibility and my in-laws who followed him around like a shadow, all kneeling together. As I glared in silence, Michael began to explain. I was deceived. According to him, he quickly married the young woman from work. Because she was already pregnant. I was angry to learn he had cheated while we were still married. Then, as the New Year's card showed, a son was born, and he thought he was living a perfect life, but it turned out his current wife had another man. Michael found out when he hired a detective because he felt suspicious about his wife always going outside to take calls and never leaving her phone unattended. Shockingly, the child he thought was his own was actually the child of his wife's lover. When Michael confronted his wife, she nonchalantly admitted to the affair and the child's paternity. And with a brazen attitude, she reportedly said, laughing,
"Of course, I'd choose my boyfriend's genes over those of an ugly, old guy like you."
I've heard that line before. I muttered under my breath, and Michael hung his head in shame. I'm truly sorry. I finally realize how terribly we've treated you. Following his lead, his parents also apologized. I won't say anything about kids anymore. Please come back and live with me. Look, my parents are truly sorry. How audacious of them. After everything they had put me through, I couldn't comprehend their nerve showing up like this, and I couldn't bring myself to even speak to them. Just then, my parents and a man appeared from the house, having heard the commotion at the front door.
Guests? What are you doing here?
My mother exclaimed in shock upon seeing Michael and my in-laws kneeling before me. The man behind my parents was surprised at first, but then quickly understood the situation and rushed to my side. Please stay away from my wife. He shielded me from Michael and my in-laws. Michael and my in-laws were dumbfounded. Your wife? What do you mean, Emily? This is a joke, right? Why would he think it's a joke? I seized the moment to retaliate. Sorry, but I'm married to him. Thanks to you demanding a divorce back then, I found someone who loves me for who I am, not just as a childbearing machine. I proudly clung to my new husband's arm in front of them. He was a colleague from work who took over my responsibilities while I was on leave and continued to help me upon my return. After I returned to work, he helped me with my tasks to ensure I didn't overexert myself, and gradually, I found myself spending more and more time with him. Being with you, Emily, makes me appreciate the little joys of life. Will you marry me? He had proposed, accepting me entirely, and we were married 6 months ago.
Wait, is that a maternity badge on your bag?
My mother-in-law shrieked, noticing the maternity badge on my bag. Michael's face contorted in anger when he saw the badge.
You said you had your ovary removed. Did you lie to me? Lying is despicable. Enjoy playing the tragic heroine?
Michael and my in-laws were still harassing me just like before.
Wasn't it you who forced a one-sided divorce without listening to my side? You were the ones who desperately wanted children, and I chose to keep one ovary to maintain even the slightest possibility of pregnancy, but you never listened, did you?
Remembering the situation made my blood boil. Sensing my anger, my new husband gently stroked my back to calm me. My wife endured tough chemotherapy and is still fighting hard with her remaining ovary. I ask you not to approach my dear wife again. If you break this promise, we will take legal action. He said firmly, making Michael and his parents back away.
Came to look after the single you, thinking of keeping you as a housemaid. Well, suffer through a high-risk pregnancy if you like.
Michael said spitefully as he left with my in-laws. My parents rushed over to me.
Emily, are you okay? Seriously, if they show up again, I won't forgive them.
Our parents' face filled with anger, having seen me suffer through the tough times. I will absolutely protect Emily, so please rest assured, father-in-law and mother-in-law. My husband reassured my parents, finally easing the tension. Later, my mother shared some gossip she had heard. Michael had his new wife live with his parents just like me. I had thought they were simply deceived by their new daughter-in-law, but it wasn't entirely the case. They had mistreated me, thinking I couldn't have children. So I imagined they must have been kinder to the pregnant new wife, but that wasn't true either. They didn't treat her any better, making her do housework and carry heavy things despite being pregnant. Neighbors had even helped her carry groceries, worried about her carrying heavy loads with a big belly. The new wife was wrong to have cheated and deceived Michael. But considering how they exploited her, no one could sympathize with them. Michael and my in-laws twice made their spouses live with them and treated them like maids, only to end up divorcing them shortly afterward. In the neighborhood, such bad rumors spread, and soon, nobody wanted to associate with Michael and his family. Even though they were still looking for a new wife to take care of them, whenever Michael brought a woman home, the neighbors quickly warned her about them. Thanks to that, they didn't manage to prey on any more women, and the three of them now live a meager life, viewed oddly by the neighborhood. Was their house like a junkyard before you married into it? No, it was reasonably clean. I think Olivia must have been taking care of the house properly when there was no daughter-in-law. Ah, I see. My mother nodded, understanding the situation. Recently, Olivia's health has been declining, probably due to her age. It seems Michael is taking care of Olivia while working, but with just 2 men, they are struggling to manage, and their house has recently become unkempt. They're getting what they deserve. The 3 of them, bound by blood, have to figure it out on their own. I hope that they will reflect on how they have mistreated their spouses in the past and live their lives with that lesson in mind.
Mommy, I'm home.
Just then, my daughter and husband came home.
Welcome back, we were waiting. Let's play with Grandma.
My daughter jumped into my mother's arms with a big smile. She is turning 2 this year. When she was born, my husband and parents cried tears of joy and thanked me. There was a time when I wondered why I chose to keep 1 ovary, and I felt guilty for making my parents worry as they silently supported my choice. But now, I have no regrets at all. Because I have such a wonderful family. After giving birth, we rented an apartment near my parents' house. My parents often visit us, bringing extra dishes they cooked or vegetables they received from friends. I've resigned myself to not having another child due to my age, but it's been a great relief that my parents play with my daughter, so she doesn't feel lonely without siblings.
Grandma's staying for dinner, right? Is that okay with you, Emily? Of course. Call Dad over too.
Thanks. There are some pears in the fridge for Dad to bring over. Our ordinary, warm conversations filled the room. Despite experiencing mistreatment, divorce, and illness, I'm now living happy days, thanks to my parents and current husband. And my life is brighter because of my daughter, who came to me halfway through my life saying, I wanted to be a parent who could give unconditional love like my father and mother.
Mommy, this is for you.
My daughter placed a little acorn she found in the park in my hand.
Wow. Thank you. I'll cherish it.
I hugged her tightly. Together, cherishing these small joys, our family wants to continue living a life full of love and care for each other.